Hello, Glenn Capelli, and if you are an Australian of a certain ilk, you'll understand and recognise the Sherrin, the Australian rules football, or if you are West Australian, you might remember the Burley or the Chestnut as well. Australian rules football was my game. It was the one thing when I was young and I'd moved from Kalgoorlie down to Perth. It was the one thing I was accepted for. I could kick a football on the field, and the other players invited me in and said, "Good on you. Come and play for us at the Doubleview Junior Football Club." And I did. Now, here's a little bit of a skite if you like, but this is the fairest and best for the Doubleview Football Club in 1971, Glenn Capelli. And just to prove it wasn't a fluke, well, there's 72, 73, fairest and best, Glenn Capelli. And 1974, big year. Go over to Subiaco. I'm the captain of the Premiership combined team. We played a grand final before the curtain raiser of the West Australia versus South Australia footy game at Subiaco Football Oval, and 30,000 people were there in the last quarter as we kicked the winning goals and went on to become the Premiership state team. So I was invited over to Subiaco Football Club to train, and my first night of training, it was so exciting to be out there with the big guys. And David Parkin, a Hall of Fame AFL player, coach, was actually coaching Subiaco League for one season, and that was the season. And the first night I trained, David Parkin went to Darryl Foster, the reserves coach, and he said, "Who's that kid? I like the way that he moves." And Darryl Foster came to me after that training session. He said, "David Parkin asked who you are." And boy, decades later, I can still remember that, and it still makes me smile. Brings a warmth to my heart. Good on you, David. But a couple of weeks later, I did my first ever knee injury. I shattered the ligaments, the tendons, the cartilage. And they said, they being the doctors, they said, "You'll never play footy again. You'll never play football again." Now, if you're a 16, 17-year-old and your life is footy, you don't want to hear that. You'll never play football again. So I thought, I'm going to prove you guys wrong. And I did. I went back and I played football. Now, they might have said you'll never play football again, but I think what they meant in hindsight is if you do go back and play football again and you do further damage to this knee, then you're not going to be able to run later in life. You're going to be arthritic later in life. You're going to have so much trouble later in life. But when you're 17 and you hear that later in life, well, that's lifetimes later. So I did go back and I did play. It took some time and it took some effort, and here it is, the Subiaco Fairest and Best Colts Award 1976 goes to Glenn Capelli. So, well, you're thinking to yourself, well, what do you want, mate? Big deal. You want a medal or something? Well, I did win a medal. Yeah, so. And it goes on. I play again, but I do my knee again as well. And it's never quite the same. And I was shattered when I couldn't play footy again. One, because of the knee injury, the second knee injury. Two, because I got asked to leave the league club. They said, we've got too many players your size, your height, your speed. And, I wanted to cry out, but what about the fairest and best? What about this? What about the captainship? What about the pre-season training efforts that I've done, etc.? But I didn't say any of that because I was just too shattered. But it was really that setback, the knee, and then the kick in the guts, that really is the making of a human being, or it can be the making of a human being. You don't want to peak in life in your teens. And I look back at those footy years, and yes, the fairest and best taught me something that was wonderful, and it's a nice accolade. But guys I played footy with in those days and against, Neil Taylor, 300 league games for Subiaco, captain of the league team. Phil Land, Gary Buckenara, if you know your footy, Gary Buckenara is a legend. So all of these guys have done so much, but for me it was the setback. the inability, doing the knee in, and what it taught me. And maybe I look back before the fairest and best, and that might be where the real learning is. Because one year I got most consistent. No matter what you're doing, do what you do well. Give it your best shot every single time you go into the field. And whether it's the field of life, whether it's the field of relationship, whether it's the field of learning, whether it's the field of sport. And before that, there was this one, most improved. And that may be the key of all the game. No matter how good you are, there is more to learn. There is more to do. There is more ways to be able to improve. So when you get your setbacks in life, when your knee goes, metaphorically or in reality, when you can no longer take the field in a certain way, consistency and improvement. How better, how else, how better, how else. Give it your best, the best you got, no matter what it is that you're doing. In life, in sport, in business, in relationship. Football or any sport can teach us much. And we not only learn from the successes and the premierships, we learn from the wooden spoons and the failures and the injuries along the way. We learn character. We learn metaphors for life. You know, the games won or lost in the third quarter is the premiership effort. It's consistency of the game. It's how well you start the game, how well you finish the game. It's 1 week at a time. You're only as good as your last game. How better? How else? Improvement. Consistency, no matter what. And that will perhaps bring you the fairest and best in life, and certainly in learning. Glenn Capelli, good on you.
Yes, yes. Yes, yes. Yes, yes. My magic brain delivers me the best. My magic brain says yes, yes, yes. My magic brain tells me the sun does shine. I keep